Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. I'm really excited about this episode as I was able to sit down with John Beauvoir for about an hour, and he spoke to me about everything that had to do with his time working with Kiss, the Ramones, the Plasmatics, and so much more that he's been involved in over the years. I want to take a moment and thank John for taking an hour of his time chatting with me. Hopefully we'll get to do it again, like you said. While you're here, take a moment and hit that subscribe button below on my YouTube channel. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. Now, without further ado, let's start my conversation with the one and only John Beauvoir. All right, hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm really excited to have a special guest with me. You're going to know him from his work with Kiss, maybe the Ramones, perhaps the Plasmatics, or the countless other artists that he's worked with over the years. I'd like to welcome to the show, John Beauvoir. Hey John, how you doing?
Hello. I'm glad to be here, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Excellent, and I'm so happy to have you on the show here. So, like I just said in the introduction, you've worked with so many artists over the years. Right? What did you listen to as a kid when you were growing up? What was the music you listened to as a kid?
Well, it's funny how we were saying I grew up on Long Island, really, way out there. At the same time, I'd spend time in Haiti and in France, everything. So I had a pretty wide and eclectic taste in music. So from the beginning, I'd listen to everything from, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, Hendrix, Eric Clapton, that kind. But at the same time, I listened to a lot of Motown. I loved the Jackson 5, the Supremes, the OJs, a lot of great records came out of there. So I like that kind of music. And I've always liked pop music. When I say pop, good songs. Mm-hmm. That's really what it's all about. There are a lot of songs that become hits, but I really respect just a good song. And it's also depending on my mood. Sometimes I'll put on I was saying last night to somebody, I'll put a record on like Just Relax Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Record that I love. I don't even know how I found this thing. It's just kind of guitar playing in Mexican style and just makes you feel like you want to have a pina colada.
You're getting me in the mood.
You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
it all depends on, where you are, what you're doing, or how I feel that day.
Absolutely.
But anyways, but yeah, I grew up on all kinds of stuff.
That's cool. So what age did you start playing music, and what instrument were you picking up when you were at young age?
Okay. I started as a drummer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was 12 when I picked up the drums for starters, and I started messing around with drums. I actually, a little bit later, I did saxophone in school as well. But drums was my first instrument. Then one day, my dad, just got tired of the whole thing. And first, he was really behind my music. And he's like, this is great. He's out playing, and everything. But the drums, too loud for him. So one day, he just kicked them down the stairs out of the house. Our stairs went right out the front door. And that was the end of my drum career, at least, at the house. And then my brother had a bass that was laying around all the time. So I decided, let me grab that. And I started playing that and really put a lot of, hours into that.
Sure.
And then I joined a junior high school rock band, or put together a junior high school rock band with a teacher of mine who had a band that had opened for the Who at one point.
Oh, wow.
So he was like, he still loved rock and roll, and he saw that I was into it, and we said, let's put together like a junior high school rock band, which is what School of Rock is kind of now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's exactly what it was. After school, we'd have like 3 or 4 singers, different keyboard players, anybody who wanted to, further their rock and roll chops in any way.
Sure.
We'd have them, and we'd have them play, and we played all the events.
Right.
And then that kind of graduated from the events to, oh, you're still there. Okay,
Yep, I'm still here.
To playing clubs on Long Island.
Okay.
So I had a band called Topaz.
Yep.
And that band Topaz started playing around the island. And then we just, next thing you know, it moves to the next step. And we get discovered. This and that. And I'm too young.
Right.
I'll get into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't want to go ahead of your questions.
Yeah, no, that's quite all right. So, and I thought I read that you said at first your parents were supportive of your music choices, but then it sounds like they turned on it and didn't really embrace your idea of wanting to be a musician. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. It was more my dad.
Okay.
My mom was, sort of this way or that way. I could usually talk her into things,
Okay.
even at that age.
Right. Okay. It's very funny.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But my dad, he said, this is great. I love it. And then all of a sudden he saw that, I was 13, junior high school rock band. I'm starting to play out at night, clubs, coming home 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
not wanting to deal with mowing lawns on Saturday.
Right.
Stuff, you know what I mean? And so all of a sudden, he was like, I don't like this anymore. And one day he gave me an ultimatum and basically said, tomorrow when I come home from work in the city, I don't want to see one instrument in this house. It's either all the instruments gone or you're gone.
Wow. And what did you choose?
I went.
Oh, did you?
And I went, but my mom was crying, really upset about the whole thing. And I left and moved in with a guitar player that I had recruited from my band. It was already starting to play clubs. So I was young. But, at that point, I guess 14 when it really started, going. And I was young, but I had 20-year-old guys, some other guys. And then when, that would join the band. He was one of them.
Right.
And then And then we just kept playing from there. And then I'll let you ask the next question.
Yeah, no. So I was going to say, so bridge the gap for us, how you went from, playing those local clubs on Long Island with friends to ultimately then, in the early 80s, get into the Plasmatics. Bridge that for us.
All right. So basically from there, so I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought for one quick second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so from the beginning, junior high school and everything, this rock, I joined Gary U.S. Bonds. That was the guy who, that's how it happened. Basically, I was playing clubs around Long Island with Topaz, and all of a sudden a manager came over and said, listen, are you interested in doing some touring? I was like, he said, how old are you? I had a little mustache and stuff. I said, 17, I'm going to turn 18. And he said, okay, that could work. And then so he had me come to, this rehearsal and meet Gary U.S. Bonds. Met him, he nicknamed me Boo Boo. Basically, you might know because he lived in Wyandanch, I believe.
I don't know, but I obviously know where Wyandanch is. Yep.
Yeah. And so next thing, we started touring everywhere. We were like, he said, meet me in Florida. I don't rehearse. I don't do any of that. You're the musical director. Hire and fire who you want. Do whatever. Just be ready. And that place you need to be when I need you there.
Right.
And I said, okay. So and that's what we did. So the first one was Florida. Then we ended up doing like the Playboy Club in Chicago. It was pretty interesting.
I'm sure as an 18-year-old, you were pretty excited.
And I wasn't 18 at this time. I was 14.
Oh, you were just saying you were 17. Okay.
That's right.
I gotcha.
So what ends up happening is he finds out. I guess he spoke to my mom or something. And he said, brings me into a room and he says, hey, Boo Boo, I spoke to your mom and she told me how old you are.
No.
And you got to go back to school. And after this summer tour is over, you got to go back. Don't even think of like just continuing here and just saying that you think you've made it already. So I followed his advice and did that. But at the same time, he'd call and have, since the teachers knew him very well, he'd say, listen, I need Boo Boo, I need John Beauvoir from, Thursday or Wednesday for the weekend. Could you please let him out? And they'd let me out of the classes. So he would literally fly me in on weekends to places where he needed me. So it was great.
Right.
I did that for a while, probably a year or two.
Okay.
Then there was some stuff in between. From doing that whole oldies circuit, I got to play with, Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, and a lot of these other people. And it was just really growing. It was a great thing. So from there, I joined the Flamingos. I don't know, because they were looking for a lead singer. So you remember that song, I Only Have Eyes for You?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Okay, that's it. So next thing you know, I am the lead singer of the Flamingos. And I'm playing in Las Vegas, and singing and crooning to these women at tables. So that was a complete other thing. I'm going to try to make this not too long. Then I ended up.
I'm so interested. I'm sitting here thinking you've accomplished more at 15 than most people I know at 45 or 50 years old. But continue.
It was great. I was doing a lot of stuff. It was in a way you almost felt like this is it.
Right.
This is, I found my life, because I was actually making, for then, decent money, and especially for my age.
Of course.
So everything was fine. So next thing you know, I'm at Flamingos, and did a little local thing in Jersey at the same time in between. Then all of a sudden I come home one day, and my, my apartment completely burnt down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
The building. I'm like, I can't believe it. They won't let you go in. They said, forget everything it's in. Everything's like completely ruined. There might be they said everything burnt down. Somebody had a cigarette and mattress, and the whole building went on fire.
Oh, boy.
So they gave me a city check for like $120. Something.
Oh, wow.
And that's all I had left.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually ended up buying a shot motorcycle leather jacket on Canal Street.
Okay.
And I think they were about $100.
Right. Okay. Well, it's an important purchase, right?
That's it. That's right. Important purchase. Mm-hmm. And, but funny thing is, it kind of defined my future, because after that, I was kind of hanging around New York City and, staying in little motels. It was a very strange time. It was a really difficult time for me. And I found an ad for a band called NYN. Actually, they were called New York Niggers.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Very crazy name. But
yeah, that wouldn't fly anymore. Nor should it, but that's... Okay.
And they were they'd be playing in these clubs, and it was a real punk band, and I liked it, so I started singing with them. And one of the first shows was opening for the Plasmatics at, I think, my father's place.
Okay.
So we do that. Everything's fine. I run into the Plasmatics guys. It's kind of the beginning of the Plasmatics.
Okay.
And next thing you know, a week or two later, I see an ad in the paper, Plasmatics are looking for a bass player. So I actually call up the guy, or Rod Swenson at the time, and I said, I don't know if you remember me. I'm the guy who was opening for you, and I'm a bass player. So he said, okay, I'd love to audition you. I went, auditioned, and I think there were a bunch of people auditioning for this thing. So this went on for probably a month or something, and then finally he called me and he said, listen, that's it. You've got the gig. We decided on you, and if you want it, it's fine. You're not going to make any money for the first 6 months, because it goes back into the band. So,
right.
That's just the way it's going to be. But I can guarantee you that it's going to be a successful band.
Right. Now, is this, I guess, the mid-late 70s time period?
Yes, exactly. We're talking around 79 here. Okay.
So, go ahead.
So I said, okay, that's it. Next thing you know, before I turn my head, I'm a Plasmatic. And then that whole world started.
Right. And then, and you guys recorded your first album, like, I think it was 1980, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's right. It took a minute to get a record deal.
Okay.
And, at first we would release independently. Mm-hmm. But then finally we got an offer from Stiff Records, which I believe that was in the 1980 probably. And that was a really big deal for us, because Stiff was a really good punk English label.
Sure.
So we got that, and that really started the ball rolling. And from there, we just started, touring. We worked hard. I mean, the band, we rehearsed every single day. It didn't matter if we had something to rehearse. So we literally would go. It was like a 9-to-5 job. So we were I think it was like 10 to 4, 10 to 5. Sure. Every day we'd be in there, or on tour, or recording.
Right.
And so that was the Plasmatics.
Yeah, and when people think the Plasmatics, obviously a lot of people think about Wendy and her crazy stage antics. But what was she like off stage? What was she like as a person?
She was funny. I always had a good time with her. Okay. She I was young too, and she loved to play with me a little bit. I was French, the French thing, Beauvoir. She liked his name. I think she just liked the whole contrast.
Right. Okay.
So it was amusing, and we'd always make jokes, and always, So she was a really sweet girl. She actually worked out. She'd be jogging 5 miles a day, every day. Mm-hmm. She was a vegetarian, So she was really devoted to being who she was, and she was devoted to the Plasmatics. Right. That was her life. I mean, Absolutely. That's the fans, the whole thing, and that's why I feel when she lost that, that's what made her unfortunately her life. Yeah. I would guess.
Right. Very unfortunate. Yeah. Absolutely.
It was just we just had differences, and a new 5-year contract he wanted us all to sign, which proved to be a very bad contract. Mm-hmm. And,
okay.
And I actually said, I'm going to go do my own thing. I've had enough. And I just didn't I felt like the band was going to go in a direction that wasn't, we discussed it. We wanted to go into a more metal, place. Okay. And I really felt that the Plasmatics were unique as they were. the lineup, everything about it. I think it had like some social significance, and plus the music that we did was our own. Whether people liked it or not.
Right.
You know,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Or at least you expand on that and better that. But they went on and I went on.
Right.
But nevertheless, after I started playing with Little Steven,
Yep.
And before that, when I left the Plasmatics, I got a couple of interesting offers, like Prince.
Yep.
Was the first offer I got when I left the Plasmatics. So I was very shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that he really love the Plasmatics and everything like that. And then I moved on from there.
So he actually offered you to be part of like Prince and the Revolution?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
He offered me to be a part of the band and offered to do a solo record.
Right. Oh, wow.
But at the time, there was a lot of racial tension at radio everywhere.
Yeah.
We didn't know who. There were only a couple people being played. It was very difficult. So at that time, I really wanted to get my own thing, and you kind of felt like maybe he's just trying to sign me to get me out of the way.
Right. Okay.
Right.
But
in retrospect, that's how you end up thinking.
Right.
But in retrospect, when he passed, I really kind of regretted, because he came a few times actually throughout the years, and I kind of regretted not working with him, because after I saw he passed, I kind of almost felt like maybe he really just needed somebody to bounce things off, somebody to be able to show his rock. He loved playing rock guitar. That's what he really loved to do.
Absolutely.
But people never really accepted him as that. So I got to thinking, maybe he's thinking, this was the second time. That maybe the rock thing, that's a way for him to express himself outside of his own thing.
Right. I thought he did pursue you a little bit with Crown of Thorns, right? Wasn't he interested with that as well?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That was when. So yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
That's and the same thing with the first, and and some other people. So it was good. So I ended up joining Little Steven. Mm-hmm. Played with him for a while, and that's a whole great story. Anyways, I played with him. He talked me into playing with him when he took a break from Bruce, because he said, "Listen, nobody's going to sign you, leaving the Plasmatics, and you're blowing up cars, and now you want to go sing." Right. Nobody's going to take that seriously, and he was right. Nobody would sign me. Right. And he said, "Come play with me for a while, and then you'll get the Springsteen credibility, and that'll give you a whole different thing."
Right.
Now, while that was happening, and I was just before that, I ran into Paul Stanley in a club called Heartbreak in New York, kind of like a dance club.
Yep.
And and we met there. He came over. I didn't know him. I loved Kiss, as you know.
Right.
But he came over. He says, "Hey, you're that guy from the Plasmatics." I said, "Yeah." And I'm kind of looking at him saying, because they were still in their makeup phase. Okay. So I said, "You from Kiss?" Yeah. He said, "Yep." And he said, "Well, okay." So then we started talking. We became really close friends. Actually didn't do any music till about a year.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Right.
We'd hang out, we'd go to concerts, we'd go to, whatever. We went to Live Aid, we went to all different kinds of things, we'd go out to clubs, we just have fun.
Right.
And then next, and that's it. And then we moved on. I ended up, next thing you know, I'm writing with them. So yes, it was crazy.
Right.
And to think that when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then the first song you wrote with Paul, if I'm not mistaken, is Thrills in the Night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So was that your song that you brought to him? Was that his? Talk about how did you guys write that song? Was it his that he came to you for help?
Well, no, we'd just be in his apartment, let's say, and I think we were just hanging out, and he just pulled out a guitar and just started playing around.
Okay.
So then I pulled out another one. I said, "You got another one?" And next thing you know, we just start jamming around, and then it just starts to come. Maybe I don't remember exactly for that song because it's so long ago.
Of course, you were just living in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And for what I remember, we just started, going back and forth, and he'd sing a little something, I'd sing a little something. Next thing, we look at each other like, I think we might have something here.
Right.
Song. And then we expand on it. And then next thing you know, we end up writing our first song, and it ends up on the record. That was a big deal for me, because that was, it was a big deal. Kiss was a big deal to me.
And they released it. Yep. Yeah, and they released it as a single. Right, so not only did it make the album, but it was a single as well.
No, that was pretty crazy.
Absolutely. So then you also recorded, I think, some of the bass on that album, right? I think you're on Get All You Can Take, Thrills in the Night, and Under the Gun, if I'm not mistaken. So was this while Gene was off doing Runaway?
Well, a lot of people say that, but Gene was around.
Was he? Okay.
He just, it was just the feeling that, Paul loved the demos. They each had a certain amount of songs to do on the record. They used to split it up that way. And, like All Night or some of the, Thrills in the Night, they'd have, he liked the feeling that I put on the bass. So Paul, it was very casual. It wasn't something that was supposed to be credited. It's not till actually just a few years ago that I started seeing all over play bass. Before that, I really didn't really hear anything about it.
Right.
So it's just a casual thing where maybe we'd say, let's meet at the studio. Paul would tell me I'm working from, I don't know, 5 to 9, then let's go catch a movie or let's go out or something, go have dinner. And I'd go in there. Next thing you know, say, hey, this song over here.
Okay.
Pick up the bass and see what you feel here. And then boom, I did it. And at that point, I really had my bass chops pretty together. I just played with Steve, and Plasmatics was hard bass playing. People don't think it, but I'm telling you.
Right. No, absolutely. So during those Animalized sessions, did you ever get a chance to meet Mark St. John while he was in the band?
Yes.
What was he like?
Well, he was just a nice guy, because it was in passing. It'd be like he'd walk into the studio. I'd hang around while he's doing his parts, because Paul was producing the record. Yep. So through anybody who's recording, Paul would be there. And half the time, then I'd be there.
Okay.
So I kind of ran into everybody. Or if there was a party, for somebody, then, Mark would come. So I didn't know him really well, but, just kind of in passing, and, friendly. Saw him for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. So that was the Animalize album. They go back on the road. Next album comes Asylum, and Paul taps you on the shoulder to write with him again, right? And this time you get 2 songs on the next album, 2 singles. That's right. Again, 2 singles. Who Wants to Be Lonely and All Night, right? So what do you remember about writing those songs with Paul? Was it the same thing where you guys just like bounced ideas off of each other? How'd those songs come about?
It was a similar situation, and we wrote very fast. I mean, I'd say at least the music part of it. The lyrics sometimes would take some time, because I can actually remember that we'd literally do some lyrics over the phone, and we could sit there, and because Paul was really meticulous about what he wanted a Kiss song to be. And I always look at it, whether I'm songwriter or producer or whatever, it's almost like I become a 5th member of the band, and I try to get into who they are and what they're trying to express, and I try to help them do that successfully,
Right.
And that's kind of how I look at it. So he had his ideas on that, so we sometimes spend a couple of days trying to get a lyric right. I know you hear it and go, what's so hard about All Night?
And then you played bass on those songs. Right, you played bass on those 2 songs also, right?
Yeah, and those songs, again, they had like a syncopated kind of bass thing. And, it's come to light now, because when I put together a touring band, which I've done a couple of times here, I've seen how difficult it's been for some of those guys to play those parts that I would think were easy. It's not like they're difficult technically, but it's the grooves, it's the up, and a lot of the guys are just used to just playing very straight down metal, and they can be great at it, but as soon as you say no, it's on the one and this, and all of a sudden they're like, uh-oh. It's funny that it's funny that you say that, because just last night I was talking to Bruce Kulick, and he brought up he brought up doing Who Wants to Be Lonely and relearning that song recently. Kidding. And having to relearn it, because he's been doing it on the Kiss cruises when he's on there, and having to relearn it, and it wasn't as simple as one would have remembered, all these years later. That's what he said?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know what I'm saying? That's funny he'd say that. That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't as easy as one would have remembered.
Yeah, exactly. So you said before, Gene wasn't necessarily always away. So was he in the studio sometimes while you were recording the bass tracks?
Yes, he was.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he was. And he wasn't. So it was nothing like against Gene or taking his thunder away, or anything like that. It was, he really liked me. He was always like, oh, Beauvoir, like, oh, yeah. He used to call me, well, he still calls me that, Beauvoir.
Right.
So anyways, so he'd just, come hang out. He'd say, yeah, play that. I love that groove. Sounds good.
Right.
Very casual.
Right.
And we've been great friends. So it's never been any kind of problem.
That's very cool. So, another song from the Asylum album that always intrigued me. You don't have a songwriting credit on it, but "Love's a Deadly Weapon" had, you mentioned before Rod Swenson from the Plasmatics days, right? So he's got a songwriting credit on there, as does, West Beach. So I was wondering, was that something that was like left over from the Plasmatics that you brought into the band? Do you know how that song got into Kiss's hands?
No, I actually don't, but I know that it probably happened through Gene.
Okay.
Because you remember he did Wendy records.
Yep, of course. Yep. Absolutely.
So after the Plasmatics, they had the Wendy solo records.
Yep, of course. Yep.
So I would think that there they started doing stuff together.
Absolutely.
And Gene with Wendy. Gene got to spend a lot of time with Rod. So that's how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you played a part in that at all or not.
No, I didn't.
Since you were in the mix. Yep. So then so you wrote 3 songs with Paul. You're 3 for 3. 3 singles. Okay. 3 singles, right? Some of the biggest hits of theirs in the 80s. And then it just stops. Why'd you stop writing with them?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I think it's been something we kind of floated apart because we always lived in the same place. So we lived in New York together, same place. And we're like, okay. Then we moved to LA at the same time, like literally together. Like, we said we're done with New York. It's getting to be really trashy here.
Right.
We got to get out of here. And it's driving around started to sound luxurious to us. So we actually moved to LA. And then, from there, I ended up leaving. So the time I was in LA, I don't think they were making a record, but we wrote other things. Okay. So we've written another. Okay, we wrote one song called "Like a Bee to the Honey."
Yep, I was just going to ask you about that. Yep.
You were going to say that. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. And there's been other ones that are sitting around that we wrote at that time. Mm-hmm. So plus he wrote a song for Voodoo X, which was, so we did some other, even though we weren't working on a Kiss record, we'd still be writing for other things when we were in LA. Right. And then somehow then I ended up leaving. I moved to Key West. Then from Key West, I was called by BMG to spend time in Berlin. So I was in Berlin. So then you just kind of, it just happens you're not spending time close anymore. And next thing you know, you're on the phone, but, and that's it. And then years go by, and it's incredible how the years go by.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But anyways, we talk about it, especially this "Like a Bee to the Honey" was a very big book. I'll let you go on that.
No. So I was going to ask you if that was, I know the song was just released this year, but I was going to ask you if it was, I'll call it a leftover song that you guys wrote, back in the 80s that just got released now, or is it a newer one? It sounds like it's a song you wrote years ago. That
was one of those songs that Paul and I wrote at the time when we were writing things to pitch to other artists or for film or whatever. And all of a sudden I was hanging out with Lordi. We were talking for a while. Somebody had introduced us, a guy named Darren Dewis from Australia, a big Kiss fan and does a lot of great stuff. He introduced us. So I've been speaking to Lordi for almost 3 years about writing, but I just never got to Finland. Sure. So I was going over to do a Kiss expo in Finland and finally just gave him a call and said, "Hey, I'm coming now." And they said, "Great, okay, let's write." So I went over there. After the expo, I spent like 3-4 days and wrote with them. We wrote 6-7 songs in like 2 days. It was really great collaboration. And then, so that all worked out. And then next thing you know, we were talking about Kiss, and they gave me the concept of the album, which was, what if Lordi had a hit in 79, in 82, in 84? What would it sound like? And I said, you know what? I think I might have something. The song that Paul and I wrote, which has that kind of 80s groove, a little bit dance. I was made for love.
Very much so.
And I said, this might be good for you guys, And I said, Paul will be very happy.
Of course.
So next day I called Paul. He says, "Yep, why not?" He would never thought of it. He'd been like, "What? Where? They want that song?" Right. So, and then next thing they recorded it. I spent time on the phone with them a little bit while they were doing that because they wanted to stay really true to the demo.
Okay.
The original demo. And then that's it. Next thing you know, they released it as a single, and the album goes to #1 in Finland, number 13 in Germany. I don't even have the other chart positions, but I think it charted in several countries, actually, pretty high. Very strange. Very strange. A song that you wrote 40 years ago or 35 years ago.
Right, right. I think to me, an ironic thing
30.
is when I saw the title, Like a Bee to Honey, I couldn't help but think that's actually a line in one of the Gene Simmons songs on the Animalize album on the Lonely is the Hunter song. So I don't know if when you guys wrote that.
Really?
Yeah. So there's literally, he says like bees to honey in the song. So I was like, oh, that's funny. I wonder if Gene knew about that in the 80s and if he was like, yeah, you're not using that song. That sounds like my lyric.
Could be. That's right. Because what year did he use it?
That would have been Animalized, so that would have been 84-ish.
Oh, Animalized. That's right.
84?
84.
Yep.
Huh. Well, no. Because we wrote that one in 88, 89.
Okay.
So we were after him.
We were after him.
So maybe we stole it.
Maybe. Who knows? Right?
No, I didn't hear that song, actually. I didn't know.
Okay.
But it worked out. And so Lordi was, really excited and everything worked out with it. And it's very strange,
Absolutely. So
know.
you said before that you have other songs that you've written with Paul Stanley over the years. Are they in demo form? And about how many songs did you guys have still?
Demo form? I think I've got another 2 or 3, I believe.
Oh, nice.
That have never been released and nothing happened with them and, very different. But I'm sure they'll come out. I think Paul might have put one of them, or somebody might have put one up. But they're just unreleased things. Maybe the same thing will happen with somebody else.
Well, I hope so. Because, when I heard like Bee to Honey, I was like, ooh, this has a very 80s feel to it. It's very unlike, I think, other Lordi songs, but it had like this very, very 80s feel to it. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's got a good vibe to it.
And you're familiar with Lordi?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not the hugest fan in the world. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I'm familiar with their work, and I knew that this was a little bit, little different than what they normally would do.
Well, yeah, that's it's great to learn about them because they're really a great band. And I love this guy Tommy.
Absolutely.
I think he's just really a talented guy. Putting all that stuff together. Oh God, all the monster stuff and this. It's just tons of work, writing all the songs, the demos, blah 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 blah. So I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much work it is.
Absolutely.
But,
So another band that I loved in the 80s and still do to this day, I'd put them in one of my top 10 bands, is the Ramones, who you went on to work with in 86, 87. You produced the Animal Boy album, right?
That's right.
So how'd you get into the Ramones world?
Okay, but first of all, we all knew each other from the past because there are, late 70s, early 80s, we were all hanging down at CBGB's, Max's, everything. So we were all buddies in the first place, And both, it turned out that both of us were being managed by the same guy, a guy named Gary Kurfürst. And he was a great manager. Still,
and I'm not just saying this because I'm chatting with you. One of my favorite Ramones songs is "Bonzo Goes to Bitburg." So and you have a right credit on it.
That song has been really rated high, and that's I wrote that song with them.
Right.
That was one, and I produced it. So it was it worked out great, and it just really worked out. It's been in several movies, and now as time goes on, we start to see that it's rated as one of the most important songs for the Ramones. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Because the first time we got into a subject, kind of an important subject.
Sure.
Like this.
No, absolutely right. It had a political tone to it, which was not typical for Ramones songs. That's for
exactly.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and so, I've always wondered, because it goes by Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, it goes by My Brain is Hanging Upside Down. When you wrote it, what was the title of it? Which one?
Bonzo Goes to Bitburg.
Okay, good. That's what I call it.
It's Johnny who had a problem with that title.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah. He just said he didn't like it. He felt I was mocking the president and et cetera. So we ended up changing it to My Brain is Hanging Upside Down.
Gotcha. Okay. And the song is about Ronald Reagan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Right. And then you went on, you produced Pet Sematary, right? The song Pet Sematary, and also their song Merry Christmas as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those were fun to do. Pet Sematary, that was, specifically done for the film.
Sure.
So we knew that. So that was fun to do. Matter of fact, there's a whole article about that production online somewhere. It actually gives a detailed, thing of right up to where my car was parked.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. I have to check
Which
that
got
out.
towed that night.
Oh,
Anyways.
no.
But I forgot, was it a Sound on Sound, I believe it might be.
Okay.
If you ever want to check that out.
Okay.
But it was those songs were cool. Merry Christmas, and both of them also have seen a big new light. Matter
Absolutely.
of fact, last year on Hits One, which turns into the Christmas station, Sirius, they were playing Merry Christmas by the Ramones.
Sure.
It was and then the next song that would come on was Mariah Carey.
Oh, wow. Talk about a difference, eh?
So I'm sitting here going, this is pretty heavy.
Right.
That's serious. This is their biggest channel, Hits One, is playing this Ramones song repeatedly on a channel 30 years after it was written and produced, mind you.
Yeah. Oh, and for me as a Ramones fan, the ironic part was I felt like in 89, 90 when that song came out, it wasn't really seen as a holiday song for whatever reason. I don't remember hearing it on the radio, but now in recent years, absolutely. I hear it on the radio all the time during the holidays.
Oh, and then movies, it's in movies. It's
exactly.
picked up so it's good. A lot of things, we didn't expect all of this, The manager, before he passed away, we were talking about it and said, who would have known, when we first got into this, we didn't know the Ramones were going to be as big as they became.
Right, of course.
Especially, when they passed away, how big they really became.
Right, exactly. Absolutely.
But it's an honor to have been, involved in that. Same with Kiss.
Right. I was going to say, what's the difference for you working with the Ramones and working with Kiss?
It's just literally just different guys. I mean, first of all, with Kiss, you had to deal with one person.
Okay. Paul, right.
With the Ramones, you had to deal with 4, 5, 6.
Sure.
And you had the band plus Seymour Stein.
Right.
My direct A&R guy. And Gary Kerfers,
Right.
So, and every one of them had big opinions.
Right. I think the part that Kiss fans will find interesting in what you said is that you had to deal with one person. Now, obviously, everybody knows Paul carried the load in the 80s, but everybody always felt Gene still had a voice or a vote back then. But you're kind of saying that Paul made the decisions.
Well, no. What I'm saying is they split the record.
Right, true. Okay.
So basically, they kind of had a setup where, Gene, you're responsible for 6 songs. You produce them. You do whatever you want to do. You write whatever you want to do. Whatever it is, I'm not involved.
Okay.
And then Paul would have the same.
Right.
That's how that was the setup. So Gene was involved, for the bass playing. That's true. That's right. Gene was involved with the bass playing stuff. Right. But yeah, that's how they had their little setup. So I guess it's a good way so that nobody interferes with either one's.
Okay. Nobody's ego gets hurt. Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Did you ever talk about writing any songs with Gene, by the way?
I have, come to think of it.
Okay.
I saw him like a year ago. I was at his house and we were talking. He was playing me some stuff because he's got a daughter that's got Sophie that has fantastic stuff.
Yep.
And, so I was listening to her stuff and everything. And we talked about it, but we not in real detail, but it's, I don't know if that'll happen. You never know. You never know.
Right. Never say never.
Know.
Right.
You never know.
Right.
Yeah.
Over the years, you've worked with many different artists, right? You mentioned before Little Steven, but I think you've also worked with Debbie Harry, Doro, Glenn Hughes, and countless others, right? Who do you say are some of your favorite people that you've worked with over the years?
Ooh, that would be really difficult to say. You know that.
Right. You'll say you like them all.
What did you ask? Who were the favorite?
Who did you enjoy working with? That doesn't mean you didn't like the others, but who do you enjoy working with the most?
I can't really answer that. I mean, I enjoyed working with all of them. I mean, and I'm not just trying to be diplomatic. It's just that they're all different. Doro, she's a blast to work with. She's German, her accent, the way she is, everything about it. She's so positive. So she's fun. And that's one thing, I'm working with Lita Ford now, for example.
Okay.
She's been a blast. She was actually at my house in my studio like a few weeks ago before this whole thing started. And she's a blast to work with too. You know what I mean? And Paul was fun to work with. And the Ramones, like I said, they were fun, but they were difficult. So, and Debbie Harry was great too. So I really get along very well with other artists and writers and stuff, and we never really have any problems, So it's like so it's always pretty smooth for the most part.
That's cool. And you've also, through the years, you've toured opening or with other bands such as like the Eurythmics, Tina Turner, Bon Jovi, and probably many others that I'm not even mentioning right now as well, right?
Yes, yeah. I've done a lot of touring, and I've also done some things on my own. So last year I did a couple of headlining shows in Europe, and unfortunately everything's getting canceled right now.
Of course, yeah.
So I just I was really looking forward to doing Sweden Rock Festival next month.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a second home to me, that country, and it was just like really looking forward to it. Now all of a sudden I just got the call, canceled.
Right. Right.
So,
Well,
a few things have been canceled. So that's really bad news for all of us,
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading some reviews about your albums, Chameleon specifically, and a review said he described your voice as a lot like Lenny Kravitz with a slice of seal. And I was like, now that's a compliment. That sounds,
Well, that's a good compliment. That's interesting. That record was a different record for me, if you know what I mean. But that's interesting. I didn't see that review actually on it, but that was a good compliment.
Absolutely. How would you describe like your voice and your style?
It's really hard for me to describe it, but I can tell you that I think my influences are a mixture, and I think that my voice somehow I've got like a rock edge to the voice, I would say, or rock feeling to the voice. But from my influences of Motown and singing with the Flamingos and doing all these different things, it lets you use other things in your riffs and the way you sing certain parts. It makes you just have more to pull from, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And I think that go ahead.
Like, for example, Rod Stewart is that kind of a singer. He's a great singer, and the tone that he's got is just unbeatable. But you know what I mean. But he's got a little bit of a soulful feel in it. But he's a rock singer. But he's not. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And to me, I think that shines through with all the different writing credits you've had over the years. So I knew you from Plasmatics, Kiss, the Ramones, right? All the rock stuff, right? The punk rock stuff. But I looked through the writing credits you've had over the years, and I see you've written a song with NSYNC.
Yes.
Lionel Richie, right? Not exactly the same as the Plasmatics, right? You have Plasmatics and right, exactly. So how does that come about that you end up, writing a song with a band like NSYNC, right? Because I don't think people would think that that's where you go from Plasmatics to NSYNC.
I know. After the whole Crown of Thorns stuff and everything, I was asked by BMG, the guy from BMG, a guy named Hardwick Masuk, who was the president over there, to come to Berlin, spend a certain amount of time there. It was for a new publishing deal. I was leaving EMI and going to BMG, and basically come work with, some of his top writers over there. He thought there'd be some good collaborations. One of the guys I already knew, Uwe Farrencross Peterson, who played in Voodoo X and was from Nena. So basically, we were producing different things over there, and a lot of these bands like NSYNC, Britney Spears, and the Backstreet Boys, all of them would come from Florida. Remember that whole setup down there, and would go to Germany and to Sweden for productions. Okay, and be brought back to America after they've had success in the rest of the world.
Right. Okay.
So Uwe and I and some of the things was the team that basically produced them over there. And so that was one of the songs that we did. That's how it happened. Sometimes it just happens that way. Lionel Richie is a completely different story.
Okay.
I was in Sweden. I was in Sweden, and basically Lionel Richie somehow found out that I was in the audience, and he had somebody pull me back because he wanted to take some photos with his wife at the time.
Okay. Okay. Right.
So we did that. We talked, and he started telling me some really cool things. He actually gave me a message from Michael Jackson. He said, we just want to really thank you for carrying the flag and, kind of being resilient and staying and doing what you're doing. I guess what they meant is, as a Black artist, there's really not anybody who's going out there and putting it on the line. Sure. And so they know how hard it is, and they know that you're going to suffer, and probably, it's difficult. So they're kind of complimenting me on that.
Absolutely.
So after that, Lionel and I kept in touch. And one day I was just sitting at my house in LA, and I had an idea, and he had told me, call me anytime.
Okay.
So I just gave him a call. I think it must have been like 11 o'clock at night or something. And he was like, I'll be right over.
Okay.
And I said, I got a little idea. He said, I'll be right over. And boom, jumped in his car, came over, and then we wrote. And so it's, all these different people. I've always been open to different kinds of music. And I feel that a great song is a great song.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's NSYNC, if it's Foreigner, if it's, Backstreet Boys have some amazing songs. You throw a couple of guitars on that, it'll be a Bon Jovi song. You know what I mean? Right. A great Bon Jovi song.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I agree with you. I remember in the 80s, a lot of times teenagers will pigeonhole themselves into one, hey, I only like heavy metal, period. And some of my friends thought I was a little weird because in the 80s I discovered the Sex Pistols. I was big into them. Of course, I was big into Kiss. But I also loved Madonna, Survivor, right? A good pop song is a good pop song.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And that's why I find it so fascinating with people like yourself when you could go to Plasmatics, to NSYNC, to Lionel Richie, to Kiss, to the Ramones. It's like, there's all these different styles. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have, I think it's over 200 or 250 co-writes on various different artists, right?
I have works. I mean, I have works on over 500 albums, but I have a lot of co-writes. It's not quite 250, but a lot of, a lot of songs, sometimes with one artist or more with another artist. But yeah, quite a bit of co-writes in these years. I even do, sometimes I go to Norway and do like a competition over there with Universal. So myself and the guy who was the head of Universal for publishing over there also, and another guy, we would do like a little judge thing, and we'd basically have everybody in town, great producers and artists, compete. And then whoever won would get a Universal publishing deal.
Okay.
But at the same time, we would do writing. So there'd be teams literally where they bring in 200-300 different writers from all over the world, like big writers, California, LA, Japan, everywhere.
Right.
They bring them all in, and basically it's really well organized. There are 20 studios in this place.
Okay.
And they put teams together and say, okay, John, you're going to be with so-and-so from LA and so-and-so from Japan. It's all well marked up and everything. And then we take off and go work for like 5 hours. Right. You have to have a finished song by then.
Right.
And then from there, we'd switch teams. And then, and everything would get switched up, and you'd write another, it'd be another. So you'd be getting 2 songs a day.
Oh, wow.
Just from that, in something that lasts a week.
Okay. Oh, that sounds interesting.
You know what I mean? It's a pretty cool concept.
Absolutely. I saw you in a documentary, I think it was a couple of years ago, Brand versus Band.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So
Band versus Brand.
Yeah.
That's right.
So share with me your thoughts on that. What's more important, the brand or the band?
Okay, that's Bob Nalbandian. That's right. He is a Bandian. That's right, Nalbandian. I think it's right. The brand is the most impossible. It's the most important thing. That's what you want to. Kiss is really a brand. So the band is one thing. It goes out and performs and does that, but the brand just keeps going. So the brand does the lunch boxes. The brand does everything else, all the merchandising. You see how much merchandising Kiss has. It's out of control.
I've noticed that once or twice.
It's out of control, and that brand will just keep going on. Matter of fact, probably long after they're gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because at first Kiss was ridiculed for that, and now pretty much every single artist does that.
Or at least they're trying.
That's true.
They're at the back of the line.
Yeah, very, very true. So what would you say your brand is then?
Well, I mean, let's put it. My brand originally, it was the Plasmatics originally. Yep. Then my brand was Jean Beauvoir, was me. And when I had my hit with Feel the Heat and do everything, those 2 albums, that one and Jack, that was my brand.
Right.
And then I decided to change a little bit because I got a little lonely making these records alone in the studio for months. And that's when I got into putting together Voodoo X.
Yep.
So then that became the brand. And this is, and then I did Crown of Thorns. So that became the brand, which kind of diluted my brand a little bit.
Why do you say that?
Well, because when you go and do those other projects, then you are not out touring and promoting your brand.
Okay, makes sense.
You know what I mean? And so people know you for Crown of Thorns. Some people know you for Voodoo X. Next thing you know, people are asking you, okay, can you bring the original lineup of Crown of Thorns? Can you bring the original lineup of this? It's like, oh, God. So it gets really confusing. But my brand, I'd say, is me, Jean Beauvoir. That's it. That's the brand. And that's, I'm writing a book and got other things. And so my thing is to really get that brand back up there where, it leaves the legacy it should leave.
Absolutely. So, and that's exciting to me to hear that you're writing a book. Any ideas when that would come out?
Well, I'd say it's going to take probably a year, because that's what with publishers, they're slow. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'd say I'd probably say about a year and a half, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
But I've got a certain amount of time to get everything written, and then it's got to be delivered, and then they need time, to get it out and distribute it.
Absolutely.
But I'm excited about that. Yeah.
No, that'll be, look forward to when that comes out. I know you mentioned before Crown of Thorns also, and now I was surprised. I saw as recently as a few years ago you guys were still playing. Is Crown of Thorns still a touring band, or what's the status of Crown of Thorns?
Well, it's not a touring band right now. Crown
Okay.
of Thorns is essentially me,
Yep, of
because
course. Yep.
Crown of Thorns was, when signed to Interscope, Mickey was in the band, Tony was in the band, Michael was in the band.
Yep.
There are really no original members anymore.
Right.
But, the original lineup that I've had for a while was, Tommy Lafferty and Hawk. And we changed bass players here and there. But Chris from House of Lords has been playing with us as well.
Okay.
But I did... Anyways, but for Crown of Thorns, I did that for a certain period of time, and I changed everything to Jean Beauvoir, actually. And I just decided, because it made more sense, because I said, this way, that's the brand that, the songs. For example, I can play All Night by Kiss. I can play songs that I did with Otto. I can play songs that I did for the Ramones. I can play songs I did for films. I can play songs for my solo record. That way, people, and some Voodoo X. So my set combines everything.
You're promoting your brand.
That's right. Because that's the one thing they all have in common,
right?
Sense. So so that's why I felt that that's how I wanted to do it going forward. I'm not saying there would never be another Crown of Thorns tour or another Crown of Thorns album. You never know. It depends on how you feel artistically at one point or another.
Absolutely.
But right now.
Yep, and I've seen video online of you doing like All Night, and I think I saw a video of Who Wants to Be Lonely. So is that is that something that club shows or even like Kiss Expos? Is that something you're open to doing more of in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love those Kiss Expos. They're really fun. It's really so interesting to see how those Kiss fans, first of all, love everything that's related to Kiss.
Absolutely.
But how passionate they are. And I run into a lot of my fans there that come with all my records and everything. So they're really a lot of fun to do. And I want to play as much as possible. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, I don't know what's going to happen.
Of course, right.
None of us said everything's getting canceled now, and it's not like I see everybody running to concerts in the next 8 weeks.
No, definitely. Have you ever thought of doing any videos online like some of these artists are doing? You've got a great catalog where you could just get up, like play an acoustic guitar, maybe.
I actually started thinking about it today.
Okay.
It's funny you said that.
Excellent.
So because I felt, maybe I should get more involved in this and do something. So I'm going to look into it.
Yeah. I think the fans would appreciate that, and like I said, you have a great catalog, and you could pull from so many different artists. So, I for one will hope that you decide to go forward with that.
Well, thank you. All right. I'm gonna look into this here and see what happens. But
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Like you just said, we don't know what's going to happen this year, right? You said you're going to be working on a book a little bit. Anything else that you have planned for 2020 and beyond that you'd want to share?
Well, yeah. For right now, I'm kind of finishing up some songwriting that because I made a pretty big commitment to a few different people. So like the Lordi thing was one thing, going back a little bit. A girl named Jessica Wolf from Germany, great artist. She's from Finland actually, but very big in Germany. I'm finishing up a song for her with Lita Ford. I'm finishing up this this song is right, and so I'm writing with a few different artists right now. Okay. Kill Code, are you familiar with them?
I know the name, absolutely.
Okay. I've got a song with them as well right now. So a lot of times I have to do more studio work for those songs here. So I'm working on those things as well. So I'm spending a good amount of time in the studio. And then what else am I doing? And then, waiting to find out what's going to happen with this touring stuff, of course. The book, somehow I always seem very busy. I got a lot of things going on. And then when people ask you, what are you actually doing? You're going, what am I doing?
you just rattled off like 5 or 6 different artists you're working with, a book. You're talking about maybe doing some online videos. I get tired just listening to you talk about all your plans.
Right. I know. That's the story of my life. It's always, I always keep it busy, maybe too much at times.
Well, I guess that's why you've been successful for coming up on 40 years now?
Well, I guess so. Well, thank you. I guess that's the point. You have to work at it. The music keeps changing all the time. The business, you just never know where things are going to go. And, especially, first it was all this digital stuff, and Spotify, and now this. And so we don't know. There's a change coming. We just don't know what it is. So
when you sit down and listen to music, do you put on vinyl? Do you digital? What kind of guy are you? I'm
really a digital guy. I don't I've got good systems and stuff like that, but I like the vinyl idea. It's funny you mentioned that because I thought I had a vinyl player in my locker.
Okay.
And about 2 weeks ago, I went over there to go see. I couldn't find it. So
Oh, no.
So I was thinking, because I just got an urge because actually I emptied some stuff in my locker and I found all these old vinyls. You know what I mean? Which was really cool. I'm looking, actually, Voodoo X stuff, Beatles, introducing the Beatles, all this really cool stuff. I said, wait a minute. I'd love to see what this sounds like on, get to remember that vinyl sound.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Very good. Well, is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap this?
No, I think we're good. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it tremendously.
And I appreciate it. And everybody out there, stay safe, enjoy music, take time to reflect and think, as much as you can. Absolutely. And stay safe and please be careful.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I appreciate you guys being fans.
Yes, and thank you. And I appreciate everything you've done for music all these years, and I appreciate you coming on today, John. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Right. Stay safe and have a good one.
All right, you too.
All righty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All righty, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to thank John Beauvoir once more for taking the time to sit and chat with me. I loved hearing his stories about his time working with Kiss, working with the Ramones, being in the Plasmatics, and I also loved hearing the story about how Prince offered for him to be in the Revolution and how he turned that down. That was something I never knew before chatting with him today. What an interesting story. What an interesting guy. I hope you guys all enjoyed it as much as I did. While you're here, hit that subscribe button below on my YouTube channel. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. That's it for this episode. Till next time, thanks for watching.